April 19th, 2013. 1 million people were told to stay inside their homes. Every train in Boston had stopped. Every road out of the city was sealed. Businesses were shut. Schools were dark. Highways were empty. Interstate 93, one of the busiest roads in New England, had 0 cars on it. Over 1,000 officers moved street by street through a quiet suburb 5 miles west of downtown. They had helicopters. They had thermal cameras that could detect body heat through walls. They had the FBI, the ATF, the US Marshals, and DHS. They were looking for one person, a wounded, 19-year-old college student. He had no car, no phone, no help. He was bleeding, and they could not find him. This is the story of 102 hours, from a crowd of thousands to a ghost city, from a backpack on the ground to a boat in a backyard, and what it revealed about the gap between what a system claims to control and what it can actually see. Patriots' Day is a Massachusetts public holiday. It marks the first battles of the American Revolution. Every year, on that Monday, Boston hosts the world's oldest annual marathon. In 2013, it was the 117th running. 23,000 runners entered. Hundreds of thousands lined Boylston Street. By 2:49 p.m., the fastest runners had long crossed the finish line. The crowd near the end was mostly families, waiting for someone they knew to come through. At 2:49 p.m., a bomb went off. 12 to 14 seconds later, a second bomb went off. Both devices were identical, kitchen pressure cookers, packed with black powder, nails, and metal BBS, sealed inside black backpacks, placed on the ground at crowd level. The FBI described the shrapnel as BB like pellets and nails. The blasts were at ankle and knee height. They were designed that way. 3 people were killed. Martin Richard was 8 years old. He was from Dorchester. He was there with his family to watch a neighbor finish. The second bomb killed him. His mother lost an eye. His sister lost a leg. Crystal Campbell was 29. She was from Medford. She was watching a friend run. The first bomb killed her. Lindsay Liu was 23. She was a graduate student at Boston University. She was originally from China. Her family was watching news coverage back home, not knowing she was there. 281 people were injured. 16 lost limbs. The youngest amputee was 7 years old. The crime scene covered 15 square blocks of Boylston Street. Within hours, more than 1,000 investigators were on the ground. And then the real work started. The FBI began pulling surveillance footage, thousands of hours of it, from security cameras on buildings, from businesses along the route, from bystanders' phones. They were looking for a moment, not an explosion. They were looking for the moment before. 3 days later, they found it. 2 men, each carrying a large backpack, walking through the crowd toward the finish line area, and then walking away without the bags. On Thursday, April 18th, 3 days after the bombing, the FBI called a press conference. Special Agent in Charge Richard Deloriers stood at a podium. He released 2 sets of images, black and white stills from surveillance footage. 2 young men, baseball caps. We consider them to be armed and extremely dangerous. The images went worldwide within minutes. Social media identified them within hours. Tamerlan Tsarnaev, 26, Djokhar Tsarnaev, 19, brothers, born in Kyrgyzstan, ethnic Chechens, living in Cambridge, Massachusetts for over a decade. Tamerlan held a green card. He had been a promising amateur boxer. Djokhar was a naturalized US citizen, a sophomore at UMass Dartmouth. Classmates described him as calm, well-liked, normal. Their bomb design came from an Al-Qaeda online magazine called Inspire. Their stated motive, written later in Dzhokhar's own hand, was retaliation for US military operations in Muslim countries. The FBI released the photos at 5 p.m. The assumption was simple. They would see their faces on the news. They would run. They didn't run. At the exact moment the FBI released those photos, the brothers were still in Cambridge, and they were watching the news. For 4 hours after the press conference, their location was unknown. Investigators assumed they were already moving, already trying to get out of Massachusetts, already gone. They were wrong. At 10:24 p.m., on the MIT campus in Cambridge, Officer Sean Collier was sitting alone in his patrol cruiser. He was parked near the Stater Center on Vassar Street. He was not responding to a call. He was not part of the bombing investigation. He was just there. Tamerlan and Djokhar Tsarnaev approached the car. Multiple shots were fired directly into the vehicle. Collier was killed at the scene. He was 27 years old. He had graduated from the police academy 14 months earlier. His colleagues said he lit up every room he walked into. The brothers tried to take his gun. The holster's retention mechanism stopped them. They couldn't get it out. They left on foot. Shortly after, they approached a man at a gas station in Cambridge. In court, he was referred to only as Danny. Tamerlan knocked on the window of his Mercedes SUV. He opened the door. He said, "Did you hear about the Boston explosion?" "I did that. I just killed a policeman." Danny was held in the car for about 30 minutes. When they stopped at a Shell station in Watertown and Djokhar went inside, Danny ran. He got to the attendant. He called 911. The Mercedes had OnStar GPS. Police now had a live location. At around 12:20 a.m., Watertown police officer Joseph Reynolds spotted the stolen Mercedes on Laurel Street. He pulled in behind it. Tamerlan stepped out of the vehicle and immediately opened fire. Reynolds ducked under his dashboard. He threw the cruiser into reverse. He called shots fired on the radio. Backup arrived in seconds. What followed was 7 minutes of gunfire in a quiet residential neighborhood. The brothers threw 2 pipe bombs and 1 pressure cooker device from the moving car. Tamerlan fired his 9mm Ruger pistol without stopping. 56 shell casings were later recovered by ballistics investigators. Every single one was fired by Tamerlan. He was shot multiple times. Then he ran toward the officers. An officer tackled him. Tamerlan fought hand to hand. And then Djokhar got back into the stolen Mercedes. He drove directly toward the group of officers surrounding his brother. He ran Tamerlan over. The car dragged his body 25 to 30 feet. Djokhar crashed the Mercedes a short distance away. He got out, and he disappeared into the darkness on foot. It was 12:47 a.m. MBTA officer Richard Donahue had been struck by a bullet during the firefight. Friendly fire. He lost almost all the blood in his body. He was kept alive in the ER. Tamerlan Tsarnaev was pronounced dead at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Gunshot wounds, blunt force trauma. Djokhar was wounded. He was alone. He had no vehicle, no phone, no plan, and somewhere inside a 5-mile radius, he vanished. He was wounded. He had no car, no phone, no plan, and yet, the largest manhunt in American peacetime history was about to begin. 1,000 officers, helicopters with thermal cameras, every tool the state had. They were going to search every house, every garage, every shed in a 20-block radius. They were going to walk right past him. As dawn broke on Friday, April 19th, police had a perimeter. They knew roughly where Djokhar had last been seen. They knew he was wounded. They knew he was on foot. The logic was straightforward. He couldn't have gone far. At approximately 6 a.m., Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick made the call. A shelter-in-place order was issued for Boston and 5 surrounding communities: Watertown, Cambridge, Newton, Waltham, Belmont. The directive was direct. Stay indoors, lock your doors, do not go outside, do not answer the door unless it is police. The director of the Homeland Security Policy Institute at George Washington University called it extraordinary, perhaps even without precedent in American peacetime history. No single American city had ever been ordered to lock down for a manhunt like this. What shutdown looked like: every MBTA subway line stopped, every bus route stopped, commuter rail stopped, Amtrak service in and out of Boston canceled, taxi services suspended, schools closed across the metro area, Red Sox and Bruins games canceled, businesses shut, highways emptied, Interstate 93 signs read, "Shelter in place." Over 1 million people went silent inside their homes. One resident found a police notice slipped under her door in the early morning. Another looked out her window and saw SWAT teams moving in formation through her street. Inside the search zone, over 1,000 officers moved into position. Watertown PD, Boston PD, Massachusetts State Police, FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, DHS, their target area, 20 blocks of Watertown. The method, door to door. Every house, every garage, every shed, every basement. Officers knocked, announced themselves, entered, cleared room by room. From the air, helicopters ran thermal imaging sweeps, cameras that detect body heat. The assumption was that a wounded person on the move would show up somewhere. He didn't show up anywhere, because he wasn't on the move. He had crawled into a boat. The boat was a 24-foot fiberglass vessel called Slipaway 2. It belonged to David Henneberry, 66 years old, retired telephone company technician. He lived at 26 Franklin Street in Watertown. The boat sat on a trailer in his backyard, wrapped in white shrink wrap for the winter. It was less than half a mile from where Tamerlan died. It was inside the perimeter. The thermal imaging passed over it. The shrink wrap and the fiberglass hull insulated Djokar's body heat. The cameras saw nothing. For over 16 hours, as officers cleared hundreds of addresses, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev lay hidden beneath a tarp, 200 yards from where his brother had been shot. Now do the math. 1 million people locked inside their homes, 1,000 officers on the ground, 20 city blocks, 16 hours, hundreds of addresses cleared. Economists later estimated the lockdown cost the Boston metro area over $300 million in lost economic activity. In a single day, $300 million, 1,000 officers, thermal cameras in the sky, and the guy was in a boat 200 yards away. By late afternoon, the search had come up empty. No contact, no confirmed sighting, no evidence of movement. At approximately 6 p.m., Governor Patrick lifted the shelter-in-place order. People could go outside. The city exhaled, and David Henneberry went to check on his boat. During the lockdown, David Henneberry had noticed something from his upstairs window. One of the chafe pads he used to protect his boat's hull had fallen to the ground. The shrink wrap looked slightly loose. It was windy. He hadn't thought much of it. Now the order was lifted. He went outside to fix it. He grabbed a ladder, climbed up the side of the boat, and before he pulled back the wrap to re-secure it, he saw something. Blood on the deck of the boat. He moved to the other side of the engine block. A body. A man curled in a fetal position. Face not visible. At trial, Henneberry would describe it plainly. My eyes looked on the other side of the boat, and there was a body. He climbed back down the ladder, walked into his house, called 911. He later said, "I am lucky I am alive." Within minutes, the perimeter resealed. Law enforcement flooded Franklin Street. A state police vehicle extended a mechanical arm to peel back sections of the shrink wrap. Thermal imaging from an aerial platform confirmed a live body in the boat. Stun grenades were deployed. Negotiators attempted contact. Inside the boat, Djokhar Tsarnaev was alive. He had lost a significant amount of blood from wounds sustained in the Watertown firefight. In the darkness of the boat's interior, he had written a message, in pencil, on the inside wall. It was a statement of justification. He wrote that the bombings were retaliation for US military operations in Muslim countries. He wrote that the victims were collateral damage, the same way Muslims killed in US wars were collateral damage. He wrote that he did not mourn his brother. The negotiation went on for roughly 2 hours. Then, at approximately 8:45 p.m., a hand appeared above the rim of the boat. Officers moved in. Djokhar Tsarnaev was taken into custody. Outside the police perimeter, people had been following on police scanners. They heard it before any official announcement. They cheered. Officers on the street began clapping. Boston police sent a single tweet. One word: captured. David Henneberry didn't want donations for a new boat. He said the money should go to the victims. He called himself an incidental hero. He died in September 2017. Djokhar Tsarnaev was taken to Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, the same hospital where his brother had been pronounced dead hours earlier. A gunshot wound to the throat had partially destroyed his ability to speak. On April 22nd, 3 days after his capture, he was charged in his hospital room. Use of a weapon of mass destruction. In July 2013, he pled not guilty to all 30 federal charges. At MIT, a memorial was held for Officer Sean Collier. More than 10,000 people attended. A stone monument was later dedicated near the spot on Vassar Street where he was killed. He was 27 years old. He had no connection to the bombing investigation. He was sitting in his car. His death is one of the clearest examples of what the brothers did in the 4 hours between the FBI releasing their photos and the Watertown firefight. An unprovoked ambush of a lone officer, a man who was simply there. Dzhokhar's trial began in March 2015. His own defense attorneys conceded he participated in the bombings. Their argument was that he was dominated by his older brother. The jury convicted him on all 30 counts on April 8, 2015. On May 15, 2015, he was sentenced to death. The legal battle continued for years. In 2020, a federal appeals court vacated the death sentence. Inadequate juror screening, the argument. In March 2022, the Supreme Court reinstated it, 6-3. As of 2026, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev sits on federal death row at ADX Florence, a supermax facility in Colorado. Legal challenges are ongoing. President Biden declined to commute his sentence before leaving office. The Trump administration resumed federal executions in 2025. No execution date has been set. Now consider what the system deployed on April 19, 2013. 1 million people ordered inside their homes. Transit shut across an entire metro area. Over 1,000 law enforcement officers. Door-to-door clearance of 20 city blocks. Thermal imaging from the air. The full apparatus of federal, state, and local authority. And Dzhokhar Tsarnaev was found by a 66-year-old retired technician who went to fix a loose strap on a boat cover. The system didn't fail completely. He was caught. He was alive. He was inside the perimeter. But the gap between what the institution claimed to control and what it could actually see, that gap was real. The boat sat 200 yards from the shootout. Thermal imaging passed directly over it. The search ran for 16 hours and came up empty. The lockdown didn't find him. The lockdown ending found him. David Henneberry called the boat "slip away the second." He said it did its job. They lost limbs. I lost a boat. Slip away is slipping away. But I say it did its job. It held a bad guy and is going away like a Viking ship. He donated every dollar raised for a replacement to the bombing victims. He died 3 years after the capture. He never called himself a hero, a billion-dollar security state, thermal cameras that see body heat through walls, 1 million people locked inside their homes, and it ended because a 66-year-old man noticed a loose strap on a boat cover. So here's the question this case leaves on the table. Did the system work, or did it get lucky?